Let's get the thoughts now of Lord Richard Dannatt, former head of the British Army. Lord Dannatt, a significant moment for Rishi Sunak, his first military intervention as Prime Minister, a joint action with the United States and others.
Yes, and he would argue, and I believe the Prime Minister is right, that this is necessary action. One hopes very much that it's intelligence-led, intelligence of a pretty high quality, so that the targets that are being struck by UK and US forces are precisely targeted against Houthi installations in order to restrict and reduce and hopefully remove the threat to international shipping transiting the Red Sea. But I think I'd also say, before we go any further, that one has to salute the courage and the bravery of British servicemen and women once again, who are willing to take action on behalf of UK interests and international interests in risking their lives in carrying out these operations. So one salutes their courage while supporting them, and I think correctly the decision that the Prime Minister has taken.
And well said about the service personnel there as well, Lord Dannatt. Just in terms of this, was this inevitable? Clearly, there had been warnings to the Houthis to desist. There had been 27 attacks. HMS Diamond itself had also been attacked while shooting down drones. Also, the implications of this, 12 to 15% of shipping goes through the Red Sea and through the Suez Canal, 30% of container ships. This has a real impact on people in this country.
Well, that's exactly the point. Put in the widest context of what's going on in the Middle East region on the whole, there's of course an absolutely correct desire not to allow the Israel-Gaza conflict to escalate any further. But what's going on in the Red Sea is itself a consequence of what's going on in Israel-Gaza. The Houthis, again, another Iranian-backed group, have said that they're taking action in support of Israel. But interrupting international shipping lanes has a major effect right across the world. It will run the risk of increased shipping costs, a delay to commodity deliveries, and multiple effects on our own economy and wider economies. So taking this kind of action to reduce and hopefully remove the action that the Houthis are taking is a right, proper and proportionate thing to do. But again, there is this risk of wider escalation of the Middle East conflict, which no one wants to see. So this has been a calculation that the government has had to make. Is this worth doing? And their answer is yes, it is. And let's hope that it's highly intelligence-led, focused correctly, and that the action on the Houthis will take effect quite quickly.
You paint there the picture of this very delicate balancing act that the UK, the US are trying to pull off here, a deterrent to the Houthis with limited action, as the Prime Minister has stressed, but this danger of escalation and the West being dragged further into a regional conflict. And let's face it, we are in this country, in an election year, war-weary.
Yes, and I think it's no coincidence, or maybe it is a coincidence, that Rishi Sunak is in Kyiv today, announcing further support to Ukraine. And I think this shows that the UK is endeavouring to be a responsible member of the permanent member of the UN Security Council. Remember, we are one of those 5 permanent members, so therefore we do have international responsibilities. And I think that we're showing that we're taking those responsibilities seriously by the action that we're taking against the Houthis in the Red Sea and the support that we're giving Ukraine in combating Russian aggression. The world is sadly an unstable place at the present moment. There are a lot of points of pressure and conflict, and we, the UK, within the means that we have, and this opens up another question about whether we are spending enough on our own defence to have the capability to support the Americans in these particular issues. But I think it's bottom line is that it's the right thing for us to be doing in playing our role in support of international security, and as far as Ukraine's concerned, European security.
There has been some criticism of Rishi Sunak's decision, given the House of Commons isn't meeting today. They will be back on Monday. But Rishi Sunak is quite within his rights to order this strike. Just in terms of where we are, though, operating on a global level, we've had Operation Prosperity Guardian, the build-up of British assets over there. I mentioned HMS Diamond earlier, but also HMS Richmond joining Bangor, Chiddingfield, Middleton, RAF Cardigan Bay as well. Just in terms of that, Do you think people in this country were aware quite how deeply we were already involved in what is going on in the Red Sea and the Suez Canal?
Well, I think if people have been following the media, they will have seen that the UK has been closely involved. As the Israel-Gaza issue has developed, UK warships and UK assets have been moving towards the region. So within the capability that we've got, and it's a fairly limited capability, as I said, that's another whole debate whether we should increase our military capability. But such capability as we have been moving to the region and have been making it quite clear that we will play our part in this international operation. Yes, of course, the United States could do most of these things on their own, but their legitimacy is significantly increased if they do these things with allies. And on the point about Parliament, there's no obligation on the Prime Minister to consult Parliament. I'm quite sure that there will be a debate as early as possible in Parliament about what has been going on. But I think he acted quite correctly yesterday by consulting the Cabinet, consulting the Leader of the Opposition, consulting the Speaker of the House of Commons, so that he's endeavouring to use his prerogative to take decisions as he deems fit, but also making sure that other key opinion leaders are also briefed. Yes, he'll go to Parliament as soon as he can, but he's not obliged to do so.
As you are speaking, Lord Dannatt, the UK Defence Minister James Heappey has said there will be an opportunity when Parliament returns for this issue to be debated. Sir Keir Starmer, the Shadow Defence Secretary and the Speaker of the House called in last night for that emergency Cabinet call. But can I ask you, Lord Dannatt, about the role of Iran here? The Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, describing Iran as the guiding force behind the Houthis' actions in the Red Sea. We also have the prospect of a war with Iranian-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iran being drawn further and further into this conflict, and the West.
Well, you say Iran being drawn in. I think I'd go further than that and say Iran is behind everything that's happened.
Drawing others in, yeah.
From October the 7th onwards. After all, Iran is the sponsor of Hamas, Hezbollah, as you say, and of course the Houthis. So when Iran permitted, encouraged or directed Hamas to carry out the strikes that it did in Israel on October the 7th, it was initiating what has become this wider conflict. Now, the problem the Iranians have got is the extent to which they can control their own further involvement. Yes, they sponsor Hamas, Hezbollah, there's the threat to Israel from southern Lebanon. And of course, we're now seeing the working through of the threat to international shipping by the Iranian-backed Houthis. So Iran's hands are over all this. And the extent to which this wider conflict will escalate is pretty substantially down to Iran, and the extent to which Iran wants to trigger multiple fronts of activity on the Gaza front, the South Lebanon front, and indeed on the Yemeni front. We are trying to combat what Iran is doing. And Iran holds a lot of the cards here. And if it can be persuaded, it's definitely not in its interest to widen this conflict. That would be in the best interest of world security.
Now, Iran this morning has strongly condemned the US and UK attacks against the Houthis, saying it's a violation of Yemen's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Perhaps I could ask you, based on your own experiences, how quickly would this kind of decision have been made? I took many people by surprise. It happened in the early hours of this morning, many people waking up. Some of the newspapers, the front pages, actually caught out and not mentioning the fact that action had occurred. How quickly would that decision have been made?
Well, the decision would have been building for some time within Whitehall and in discussions between Whitehall and the United States government. But once the decision had been taken, the Prime Minister having briefed the Cabinet last night, then issues of operational security have become significant and become paramount. So once the decision had been taken, then the action was always going to follow very quickly in order for Houthi targets not to be prepared and forewarned, and the chance of the strikes being successful significantly increased. And this is why it comes back to the importance of intelligence preparation to make sure that British and American forces know precisely where the Houthi targets are, where the drones are being launched from, where the missiles are being launched from, and the strikes are as surgical and forensic as possible to increase the chances of them being successful, and therefore to lessen the threat to international shipping in the Red Sea.
Lord Richard Dannatt, thank you very much indeed for your time.